Hello, everyone, and welcome to Lunch Break Science and Happy Women's History Month. I'm Ariel Johnson from the Leakey Foundation, a nonprofit that supports human evolution research and shares discoveries. Today, in honor of Women's History Month, we have a replay remix of our past Women's History Month episodes. As you may have noticed, we are not in our usual setting today. The Lunch Break Science team is in Los Angeles at the meetings of the American Association of Biological Anthropologists, scouting for the next exciting discoveries, research, and scientists to share with you all in upcoming episodes. And we're also catching up with some past guests. We've already heard about new groundbreaking research, and yesterday was only the first day. It's still top secret, so be sure to subscribe to our channel and smash that notification bell so you don't miss a thing about these amazing discoveries directly from the scientists involved. Yeah, you can see this is the Lunch Break Science team with our past speakers. Also, if you are joining us from let us know where you're joining from in the chat or the comments, whether you're watching live or catching the replay. We're excited to see who is here. So today for our replay remix, we've grouped clips from past episodes together by theme. So I will introduce each theme and then we'll watch several videos and hear what people have to say. So let us jump in. First, we hear from primatologist Kelly Stewart on Women's History Month.
It is a great honor to be here and to be part of Leakey's celebration of Women's History Month. And I have to say that a perusal of the grants and the projects that Leakey has funded over the many years it's been around is a pretty illuminating little history in itself of women's effect on science and contribution to a science, namely anthropology.
So let us know who your favorite women in science are in the chat or the comments. Speaking of important women, if you've ever wondered who is chatting with you and making everything run so smoothly behind the scenes, it is the amazing Lunch Break Science team. I'd like to introduce the team, our associate producer, Megan Kalsa, and our science multimedia editor, Ellen Crooks. It's great. I like the show could not run without them. And again, like if you're wondering why everything is going so smoothly, it's them. So thank you both for all your amazing work. Okay, so we also want to thank the Ann and Gordon Getty Foundation, Camilla and George Smith, and the Jonah Arnold Travis Education Fund, as well as viewers like you who made this episode possible. Now, let's hear our next clip featuring Mbua, Naomi Cleghorn, Mercy Akinyi, Ashley Hammond, and Kelly Stewart, who share amazing moments they experienced of discovery, field life, and more. Let's check it out.
Quite phenomenal. Just like all other expeditions, the day you find a hominid is usually a special day and everybody is excited. So it was to us at KFS when we found first what we saw was the hominin canine. I was standing very close to the excavators taking my notes. And one of my colleague, Mr. Samuel Muteti, who is right now doing his PhD in US, he lifted a small chunk of matrix or the soil. Yeah, this is the canine. Yeah, and He did not know that beneath that little chunk of matrix contained the canine. So I spotted it from where I was standing, and I asked Samuel to turn it over, and he turned it over. So what I did was to explain that a hominin canine. I was I was very, very excited, and I could just, spot it from where I was standing, because of course I've seen lots of the hominid teeth and canine. And to me, immediately, I just identified it as a hominid, and everybody stopped what they were doing, and we all assembled together, and everybody wanted to see it. Everybody wanted to touch it. And our spirits were just raised on that day. And for the remainder of the day, we were quite happy, and our spirits were high. And we were looking forward into finding more on that day, but it was never to be.
Me using the drone, and I'm scowling because I'm about to fly it out over the ocean, and I was just desperately afraid I was going to ditch it in the Indian Ocean there. And
this is a world premiere video, right?
Yeah, this is a world premiere. No one's seen this video outside of our team. You can see how high our site is there. The drone was actually, it gave us this external perspective, but it was actually much more useful on survey. There are sites that are very high, and you can't get to them without climbing equipment. So it's really nice to be able to check them out with a drone before you start trying to climb up cliffs. And you can see as we go in here, this is the team, and everybody on site has different jobs. So there are the people running the total stations, they're the gunners, they do that all day. There are the excavators, and then there are other people who are interviewing the excavators and just making sure the data gets processed correctly. So it's great having a big team on this site, even though it gets kind of crowded sometimes.
I didn't know what to expect when I went out to the field. I knew it would be remote, and for sure when I went there, it was remote. It's in the middle of nowhere. It's like in the middle of the park, and all that you can see occasionally are Maasais, but it is beautiful on its own. This is the swamp at the park. When there's water, it's really beautiful. And so when I went first to the field, I thought I'd be sleeping in a sleeping bag, and I got there, and there were really nice tents with like a bed. So that was really cool. You can see one right at the back, but also the field team was really amazing. It's a wonderful group of Kenyans who are there year round, and being in the field made me appreciate what they do. At the time, they were studying over 300 animals, and they actually know each of these animals by name. Like they know each of them, like they've given names to them. And for the whole time that I was there, I could just never figure out which animal was which one. And so I think it's really good to have such a team. And plus the baboons that are studied there, because they've been studied over, 5 decades now, they're really habituated to the field assistants. And I think getting habituated groups of primates is really difficult.
So this is a tough question. It's almost like you're asking me to choose my favorite child.
Oh, yeah.
But I think one of my favorite fossils of all time is a very poorly known pelvis and femur. It's called KNMER 5881. And so you're looking at just a little piece of a femur shaft that was found in 1980. And the reason why I love this fossil is because it's a detective story, and I was part of it. So in 1980, this little piece of femur shaft was found, and it was suggested to be Homo habilis-like in cross-section. And then in 2009, when I was out with Niamh Leakey's team, we found more of the femur shaft and part of the pelvis at the exact same spot where this bit of femur had been found in 1980. And back in Nairobi at the National Museums of Kenya, we discovered that you could actually perfectly conjoin the piece from 1980 with one of the new pieces that was found in 2009. So basically, fossils found 30 years apart that clearly belong to the same individual.
My first day of arriving at Karasoke is probably the most thrilling thing that ever happened to me. First of all, it's one of the most beautiful places on Earth. It's extinct volcanoes. It's at 10,000 feet, mountain forest, beautiful meadows. There's no comparison. Secondly, I mean, the animals themselves are awesome. And, once you've been in the presence of a wild gorilla, life is never quite the same. And these gorillas were, they didn't charge because Diane had habituated them so that they were very used to our presence and to people watching them. And so you could actually, if you kept your distance and behaved properly, they would ignore you and go about their day. And so it was, it's very hard to describe how thrilling that was for me. It was also quite overwhelming. Apart from trying to breathe at 10,000 feet, there was just a huge amount to learn all at once. I had to learn how to track gorillas, how to follow their trail. I had to learn how to approach them and be around them. One of the most important people who taught me this were the Rwandan field assistants who really knew their stuff. I had to learn how to speak Swahili. That's how I communicated with the Rwandan guys who worked at camp. And I had to learn to recognize the gorillas, because although when you get to know them, each one looks different, is a personality, they're individuals. When you first meet them, there's just a whole lot of really big furry animals that kind of look the same. And so it was all a bit overwhelming, especially since about 3 weeks after I got there, Diane went on a lecture tour, and I was there with the Rwandan support team that was there, and kind of thrown in at the deep end. But it was a very exciting time to be looking at gorillas because there was still so much to discover. So you could go out and you could see new things. Like I saw a birth for the first time, and it was sort of quantified natural history. And so we were documenting, how groups form, what keeps groups together, how groups dissolve, where animals move, and where they go between groups. I mean, there was just so much to learn. In addition, it was a very exciting time theoretically to be in sociobiology and anthropology. And there were all these data coming in from other field sites on other primates like chimps and macaques and baboons. And that was really fertile ground for comparative analysis.
I want to give a special call out to those of you who are watching us live. Thank you, Cheryl, Jennifer, Meredith, H, Kathy, and Carissa. We are just so grateful for our live viewers, and thank you so much for tuning in. We definitely are feeling the love from the Leakey Foundation today. Now let's hear from Mercy Akinyi, Carol Ward, and Ashley Hammond on the importance of mentorship.
I believe that for us to have good career progression, we have to be mentored. I have been mentored by very many people, especially by my graduate advisor, Professor Susan Alberts, who has been key to even my ability to go ahead and do a master's research project and even proceed to a PhD project. But I've also had many other people who are mentors from the Amboseli project, from Duke, from the Institute of Primate Research where I work, and also from the Cambry Wellcome Trust where I did my postdoc. So the pictures that you see are pictures of different trainings that we do with some of our staff, but also with our undergraduate interns and graduate interns and master's students. And so I enjoy being able to show them some of the things that I've learned in the lab, whether it's microscopy of different parasites or PCR, or like now we're trying to learn how to use a new kind of small sequencer that we have in the lab. So it's been exciting to go through these sessions with them. But I'm also a member of different women professional groups. So I'm a member of the Kenya Women Veterinary Association and the Organization of Women for Science in Developing Countries, the Kenyan chapter. And what these programs do is to mentor the younger vets who are coming up, but also to mentor high schoolers and tell them, look, science is fascinating and there's much that you can get from women. Encourage them to take up the scientific subjects pretty much, yeah.
Well, you know, we scientists can do all the science we want, but if we don't reach out and share what we're doing and help the communities we work in, we're really not doing our job. So one of the keystones of our field project is that we work with local communities where we find our fossils and we ask them what they need. We've helped build 2 primary schools and 2 of our field sites and try to help kids get education so someday they perhaps can pursue the study of human evolution as well. But we don't just do outreach in Kenya. We also do lots of outreach here in the United States to help make a more scientifically literate public. Getting kids looking at fossils is a great gateway science to studying science in general, and people love it. And so we feel very strongly about bringing what we do to the public, even here in the US. And in some ways, one of the most important things we do as paleoanthropologists and professors is help educate the next generation, mentor students at the graduate level, at the undergraduate level. These are my students now in my lab. We are partners in everything we do, and we have undergraduates, and we reach out and train them, and they go on to positions. Here I am with Dr. Don Johansson and Dr. Ashley Hammond, one of my students, who's now a curator at the American Museum of Natural History. So we're giving forward, sharing what we've learned so the next generation of younger, brighter, more energetic people can take over.
A big part of, so as I mentioned before, I participate in the Kubi4 Field School, and one of our main training missions is to train not only the next generation of women scholars, but Kenyan scholars in particular, because we work in Kenya. So we always reserve about 10% of our student capacity is for fellowships to Kenyan students to come at no cost to them and to train them in Kenyan field science so that we can help give back to the community. So we've been doing this over many, many years, and we've trained, at this point, I would say dozens of Kenyan and East African young scientists.
I want to give a special shout out to Lorraine and Pete for joining us. It's great to see you here. So today, for Women's History Month, Kelly Stewart and Sandy Harcourt and the Anna and Gordon Getty Foundation will quadruple match your donation today, meaning that a $25 donation will have $100 worth of impact. Kelly and Sandy offer this matching challenge every year, and we'd love to have a clip from Kelly explaining why this is so important to her.
Well, there's no doubt that the Leakey Foundation is a leader in the quest to understand who we are and where we came from. And they are really a unique, one-of-a-kind organization that funds a wide range of disciplines in the field of anthropology, from bones and stones to behavior to genetics. And they are a very no-frills organization. And I have always been impressed by how efficient they are at reviewing grants, making grants. There's great communication between the administrators, the staff, and the scientists, and the board of trustees. And as a result, they have launched and supported the careers of an impressive number of leading anthropologists from many countries, and importantly, many from the countries where field work is being carried out, digging up bones, studying behavior, that sort of thing.
So if you would like to have your impact quadruple matched, you can donate through YouTube, or you can visit us at leakeyfoundation.org/donate, which we will also share in the chat. It's a really great opportunity to have the impact you make really, really just, increase and have a ripple effect. So thank you so much, Kelly and Sandy and the Anna Gordon Getty Foundation for the match. So now we will see our last set of clips, which are featuring Jenny Tung, Naomi Cleghorn, Emma Mbua, Ashley Hammond, and Kelly Stewart discussing their inspirations.
In high school, and you take math, you take biology, you take, writing, you take social studies. You don't take evolutionary anthropology. So it wasn't a field that I had actually heard of or really understood anything about before I came to college. But I was lucky enough to have some really fantastic professors, some of whom have become my colleagues now, including in my first year of undergrad. I took a class in forging social ideals in an evolutionary framework with a woman named Julie Johnson, who had actually done her PhD research on baboons as well. And I got hooked because all of a sudden there was this framework to understand why we behave the way we do, and particularly behave the way we do in relationship to others, which I think is one of the most important things that determines how well we do on a day-to-day basis. So that's how I got interested.
Well, I got interested pretty early, and I think I credit my mom with taking me to the Smithsonian a lot when I was a kid. I grew up outside DC, and but then in high school, I actually had an anthropology class, that was kind of a game-changing experience for me. So I kind of I got turned on to anthropology really early, and I already knew I kind of wanted to do archaeology. I was trying to break into field schools early, and they wouldn't let me start until I was 15. So I was trying to do those field schools during high school, and then I did an internship at the Smithsonian. I was just, I really loved working there, and I had some wonderful mentors. And I just remember, and that is not a picture of me in high school, but that is at the Smithsonian in the archaeobiology lab. But I kept going back there. But I just remember one of my early mentors putting an assemblage of broken bison bones in front of me and saying, "Here, try to deal with this and figure out what goes where." And I pretty much fell in love with skeletal material, and I've been working with it ever since.
There are many wonderful women who have been in this career in the early part of in the 20th century, also part of the 19th century. And I want to single out Mary Leakey, for our dedication in working at Old Vi Gorge and into finding the Paranthropus skull in 1959, and also for finding the trail of footprints at Latoli, as well as the the fossils which come from Latoli. And of course, I'm talking about Australopithecus afarensis from the Latoli. So yeah, I would say Mary Leakey inspires me quite a lot. And of course, as I say, there are many other women in the field today, and those who are there are no longer there, those who inspire me. And would like to call upon the women in this field to continue with what they're doing, because each one of us is doing an excellent job in whatever area we are dealing with.
Well, as I said, there are many incredible women doing things now. But I think in terms of people who inspired me when I was, especially at earlier career stages. So first and foremost, I have to say Carol Ward. She was my dissertation advisor, and she's a brilliant scientist, and no one knows hominin postcrania the way that Carol does. So she's absolutely one of the best people to work with. I also have found Kay Berensmeyer to be very inspiring. Kay has worked in East Turkana for many years. She's been just a luminary in developing taphonomy and some, finding better resolution on the geology and paleoanthropology more broadly in Turkana. So she's really an inspiring figure. Leslea Lusco, who, as I mentioned before, I, in some ways, inherited the Lemudongo field project from her. She was my predecessor at the site, and I couldn't have asked for a more generous or well-organized predecessor. She really paved the way for me. And then I think, lastly, I would say Niamh Leakey, who allowed me to join her field crew very early on when I was a PhD student, and get my feet wet in East Turkana paleoanthropology. And yeah, those four ladies really have made a lot possible for me.
Well, of course, Jane Goodall and Diane Fossey were my heroes from the very first time I read their articles in National Geographic that were published in the late 60s and early 70s. And then there was, of course, Birute Galdikas and her study of orangutans in Asia. But the very first woman to really inspire me was my mother, because she loved animals and she loved wildlife. She got my father interested. And then our parents took us on a trip on a safari to Tanzania and Kenya when I was 14. And I was so blown away by being around wild animals, I decided that I wanted to become a naturalist. And then my mother developed an interest in human evolution and human origins through her involvement with the Leakey Foundation in the 60s. And she gave me books to read on the subject. And then I became very interested in anthropology. And I decided then that I wanted to become an anthropologist.
It was an absolute privilege for us to have the opportunity to tell the stories of these amazing women. I hope that, or we hope that you find their words as inspiring as we do. We want to thank you all for taking a break from your day and feeding your brain with the Leakey Foundation and also celebrating Women's History Month with us. Until next time, stay hungry for knowledge. Lunch Break Science is brought to you by the Leakey Foundation and made possible by the generous support of the Ann and Gordon Getty Foundation, Camilla and George Smith, and the Joan and Arnold Travis Education Fund, as well as viewers like you. Show your support of Lunch Break Science by subscribing to our channel, clicking on notifications, and giving us a thumbs up, or making a donation to help us create new content. Still craving science and can't wait for the next episode? You can feast on the Leakey Foundation's content library with past episodes, lectures, our podcast origin stories, and more. Thank you all for tuning in, and see you next time.